Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Hope we meet you well. The presidential jet seizures, that's what is trending now. So our turn to look at it on the program. As you know, we've been on a rolling coverage, but time to get our viewers at this particular hour to be able to weigh in on the matter. And our guest is Mr. Curtis Adigba. He's a lawyer and public affairs analyst. Do I need to say? He's very, very well known to our viewing public. Thank you as always. But I was just commenting before we came on, say, you've become a stranger because the last time we sort of jammed together was back in the political season era.
Yes.
Yes, but here we are now. I don't know if we're done with politics yet.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Well, politics is our daily stable. It never comes to an end.
So, Zhongshan Fusheng, if I'm saying it right, that's the French, that's the Chinese company that we have a disagreement with, and according to all the documents, it's the French courts have actually detained three presidential planes in France.
Now two.
Two.
They released one.
Now, even that one is still embarrassing. Thank you very much for that, by the way. But even that is embarrassing because let's look at the matters arising from this embarrassing affair. Because any way you look at it, it's an embarrassing affair. Give me your read of how we got here, because we have to have administrators. Initially, I had said that, what is it with our lawyers? But then I remember that if a lawyer is not briefed, he's not briefed. He doesn't know anything about it. Were the lawyers briefed in time? Is this the fault of the lawyers? Did they do a shoddy job? Is it the fault of our administrators? Is it the fault of Ogun State government? Is it the fault of the federal government? So, or is it even a matter of finding fault wherever it is due? Is that the issue? What should we be looking at going forward so that we don't have this kind of an embarrassment again?
Unfortunately, you do not have a system that can prevent this kind of embarrassment in the future. Because the system that we operate is insensitive to things like this. You know, we used to the fact that in our own judicial system, you can murder people and get away free with it, especially if you have political power.
Yes, in a manner of speaking.
And you're enjoying some level of immunity in the local system.
Yes, but that is not a thorough fact. You're just, it's hyperbolic.
Yes.
To emphasize.
So that people understand how bad the situation is. Because when you look at the history of this extant case, you will find out that there had been opportunities time and time again that this could have been nipped in the bud. But
we weren't taking action.
The dramatists personnel didn't think it was an important issue that should take their time. Because you also understand that sometimes in 2021, there was an arbitration in London on this very issue. That arbitration was presided by the president of the UK Supreme Court. It made an award. Representatives from Ogun State government were there. And I also want to believe that Nigeria sent a representative. That's why it's called an arbitration. The parties sat down and the arbitrator gave a judgment, $75.4 million. And not a dime has been paid. We have not heard about the appeal, if there was provision for an appeal from arbitration. Everybody just went quietly away, leaving these guys to plot their next move. And this is what we are seeing as the embarrassment.
Even when the judgment was given against us, against the defendants, which was Nigeria, Ogun State government, where the federal government comes into all of this is that it, by default, is the guarantor, isn't it?
Yes.
Of any of these kind of laws.
Because in international law, subnational government cannot sign international agreement without the federal government providing a cover. It's like the CBN going to sell treasury bills. They are using the sovereignty of Nigeria as security or collateral. So this is what happened. And now the reason why they have gone for the jugular of the federal government is because they feel that they are in the position to pay this money.
Yes.
Because they can pay and then deduct this money from Ogun State FARC allocations over the months, okay? Or just pay and then deal with Ogun State.
It seems that there were lapses all over. Even the federal government doesn't seem to have its own watchdog over affairs. The Ogun State must have known that it was defaulting. This, again, people that are hearing about this action now, some might think that it's a recent matter, but it's a long-standing matter. It goes back to the time of then Governor Benga Daniel, now Senator. And after that, there was another governor, Mosu, and right until we have Governor Abiodun now. So this is a matter of long-standing. And I don't understand how somebody wasn't even able to blow the whistle that, look, time is passing and we are now in serious, not just default, serious default.
Okay, so I think here's the problem. First and foremost, the people that were involved in this don't even see it as a problem, and they still don't see it as a problem. So let me give you a brief background of what has happened.
Sure.
I think it was sometimes in 2003 that the idea to set up a trade zone, like you have the Lagos trade zone, with a Chinese company started. But it wasn't until 2007 that that contract was signed. Okay? The original contractor was subsequently substituted with this current company. Now, the argument for terminating the contract was that they got an information from the Chinese embassy, the commercial department of the Chinese embassy in Lagos, that this company was not registered by them and therefore was not authorized to do business in Nigeria. That was the basis for which this thing was cancelled. But then it raises so many questions. The prominent of this is that who carried out the due process?
The due diligence.
Yes. Due diligence, who went to search this company. If the same commercial department of the Chinese embassy can write to you saying, we don't recognize this company, why was it difficult in the first place for those who entered into this agreement to go to the same place to say, who are we dealing with from your country? Do they have the capacity, or do they have your imprimatur? Or are there people we can deal with? Why was that not done? Now, you didn't do that. Of course, in every contract, you have exit clauses. If this doesn't happen, this happens. Why did they not follow that? Because you see, when they went to court in Nigeria here, their prayer was to say they want to be brought back to the contract and for the contract to continue. But at some point, they felt that it was dragging too long and they were not likely to get justice. So they terminated the suit here and they went abroad and started the process of arbitration. So it's been long in coming to this point. It just didn't happen. But look, when you listen to the guys that were involved in this, Amosu had said, former governor had said, look, we terminated it because this was a fraudulent company. They made a misrepresentation to us. And when we found out, we decided to terminate it. Yeah. But was that the basis for terminating? Did you write to them saying so? Did you work around the contract to see that the exit clauses were followed in terminating this contract?
Because these are the legal questions that will be asked. These are the ones that you're tripping out now. Yeah. And we had senior lawyers in there. We had senior lawyers on the Nigerian part. We had senior lawyers in there in all of this time. And I just don't know. A lot of Nigerians are just watching and hoping that maybe the lawyers can help us sort it out. It can't be, or can it? Can it be that the legal team was so slack, so lacking in professionalism?
No, I wouldn't agree with you.
Well, I'm saying, I'm casting around.
Lawyers take their cue from the hiring party. Lawyers are not going to employ themselves and go ahead to do a brief for a client. And even if you come back as a lawyer from arbitration and you say to your client, this is the judgment of the arbitration. We have to pay this amount of money. Yes. And the client says, no, we're not going to pay. What are you going to do? The lawyer is not going to pay from his pocket. You understand? Now, recall that this is not an isolated incident.
Because if we say, if for instance, in this example you've just given, it doesn't necessarily have to refer to this particular case. But if the principal, if the client, if the client says, we're not paying, I'm not paying upon being reported.
There's nothing the lawyer can do.
And therefore, that means that the person, the principal, has given up, pursuing that case.
Yes. And again, you must...
Technically, that's what it means.
You must also understand that as a country, we're lastminute.com people.
Yes.
We don't want to put out the fire before it degenerates. You understand? Or it sprays around. We want to go big on putting out the fire when we could have stopped it completely. Recall the case of P and ID.
P and ID.
Well, of course, I mean, there were several opportunities that the issue could have been dealt with, but we waited until it got to a head. And then the government had to fight so hard, spend so much money to pull us out of it. And I believe that this was an issue that could have been dealt with, quickly. I understand. Even if you had agreed with the arbitration panel, to say, okay, we agreed with the judgment, we agree with the judgment, but this is how long it would take us to pay the money. And you started paying, or commence legal proceedings that will set aside the arbitration if the agreements had clauses that says if you are not satisfied with arbitration, you can challenge it.
Yeah.
But they didn't do any of this.
And this is the uncanny part of it, as you are saying. Even where a judgment is obtained against us, you can still approach the tribunal look, there must be a way out, whatever. There must be a way out.
You can even seek for a political solution or a diplomatic solution. Because if the amount, granted to them was, and they face is a clear situation where they are not going to be able to recover anything at all. If you offer them something lower and you're willing to pay, they would have accepted that.
That's what a lot of
and what you are seeing,
people are saying.
Yeah, what you are seeing right now, they got an interim order to impound three of our jets, federal government jets. One of them happened to be the newest aircraft, the Airbus 330. And from what we are hearing is that they decided that one of the aircraft should be released, so that the president can use it to travel. That itself is telegraphic. I mean, it's sending a message that they're seeking for reconciliation, So I think there are still opportunities to be able to resolve this issue amicably if we are serious. Because when I read the response from the federal government, a statement issued by Bayo Nanoga, it was like, oh, these are predatory foreign entity always trying to rip off the country. It didn't even address the issue that got us to where we are,
Okay, sorry about that. When it is because we have entered into treaties that make us part of the community of nations that we have this situation, because there must be order, there must be rules of engagement. Otherwise, nobody will deal with it with us. We can't be isolated. Can we change anything going forward? Trying to learn from this particular experience. Of course, the ordinary thing to say is that we need to be a lot more orderly in our processes. That would be the simplistic, logical way. Is there anything Nigeria can do, for example, so that we don't have this kind of a situation in future? Does our constitution allow that, governments are not going to be able to get us into this mess anymore because we simply won't guarantee any loans?
Well, that's not a constitutional issue, but what I can tell you is that this is where the office of the Attorney General Federal Attorney General comes into play powerfully, because it's the legal clearinghouse of the government. So if the federal government is going to stand as guarantor to any foreign loan or contractual obligations, it means that there has to be a very firm and strong agreement on what happens if the primary party defaults. How does the federal government, where does the federal government get remedies from? All this has to be done. Look, there's nothing wrong with subnationals engaging in contractual obligation with foreign entities.
Nothing wrong, so
There's
far as they
wrong.
play their own part.
These are things we talked about, referred to sometimes as foreign investment, direct foreign investment, because they were going to build, operate, and then at some point transfer. But the conditions just have to be right for the country to enter. Because you see, the balanced side of things is that we also have predators on the international scene
Exactly.
who go to different undeveloped countries to carry out this kind of heinous practice and rip them off. Recall the story that Kunjiwala told in her book about a company that had no capacity, no knowledge at all in the field, that they were coming to Nigeria to sell. And they wanted to, I think, rebuild part of our ports for a huge amount of money. But they took Kunjiwala, to pry into their affairs and found out that they didn't have the capacity to do what they wanted to do.
And they could not have been working alone, unfortunately.
Again, the P&ID issue focuses on the same kind of issue, where you have some low-level officers in government, setting aside some basic conditions that should have been contained in that agreement for these guys to come in. And when they didn't fulfill their obligations, the same people did not cancel this contract. They waited until these guys took us to court, and we're almost going to rip off the country of a huge sum of money before the federal government woke up from a deep slumber and I was able to stave it.
Now, what's your sort of read of how this could all pan out? You've just said, and I've heard it said before, that in a situation like this, even if you don't have all of the 75 million odd, even if you were to, talk with them, it's 30 I have, it's 35 I have, it's 40 I have. Because of the situation, they just want to get out of this. Everybody wants to get out of this. They likely would take it. What are the options that are now left? Clearly, we can't pursue the legal option of we are, you need to rule in our favor because we've blown all our chances. I understand from legal commentary I've been hearing that it wasn't just one chance we had.
Yeah, so many chances.
So many chances.
So many opportunities.
Yes.
We could have nipped this in the bud. So I think that there are several options, but I think the most viable, a political diplomatic solution, in which case the federal government will engage the Chinese government and trying to see how the two parties can be brought together to enter into some sort of arrangement where a lesser amount of money than agreed could be paid, or they are allowed back to continue with the job. That's one. Now, but the most important thing coming out of this is the fact that we don't operate a system that penalizes those who drop the ball.
It's a very important point.
We don't. Because you see, in some other parts of the world, the two former governors who were involved in this arrangement will be in handcuffs, waiting for trial.
Yeah.
But you see, what we are saying is, how will Ogun State or the federal government pay this money? And there will be no consequences for the guys who entered and terminated this whole thing, creating this problem. So we also need to look at our law enforcement. How do we punish people who mortgage national interests? How do we deal with them so that others can look back and say there'll sure be consequences for this kind of behavior?
You said something. People have their clout. People have their connections. It all started back in Governor Daniel's time. By the time it came on to Governor Musu, I think the connection is well known between Governor Musu and former President Buhari. So it is thought in some quarters, rightly or wrongly, that was a kind of a leverage that allowed him to do what he did at the time. Even though he's, as you know, he's busy, sort of, well, the way papers put it is that he's broken his silence on the matter.
Well, he doesn't have a choice but to speak to the issue. And also, you must also factor in the toxic relationship between the two men, Gbenga Daniels and Amosu. They were great friends, but along the line, they went their separate ways. And so for Amosu, at the time he took over from Gbenga Daniels, probably felt that this was a project of the previous government. It has nothing to do with my administration.
Yes.
So there was no attachment. And that's where we have a big problem in this country. Government It's a continuum.
It is supposed to be.
You don't even have to like your predecessor or your successor. Whatever is done in the interest of the state has to be preserved. You know? And that is the same approach we are seeing from the current government in Ogun State. They are simply saying, this was done and dusted 12 years ago before we even came into power. But then you have assumed the reins of power.
Of course.
So it behoves you. It's now your responsibility and duty to ensure that the Ogun State people and by extension, the Nigerian people gets a fair shake from what has happened. No, so to just come out and say, oh, you know, it wasn't us. It wasn't me. This happened 12 years before I came. It's not a solution.
Neither is it a defense. Going from that very principle
you
of
already
governance
knew
is a continuum.
From the moment you took over the government, you've inherited the assets and liability of the government. So it's not an excuse to say, oh, but because whether you like it or not, it's had opportunities in the 5 years plus that he's been governor to deal with this issue. And he could have dealt with the issue.
Apart from this whole thing about some governors not wanting to have anything to do with their predecessors, especially if their relationship was, as we say in Nigeria, one kind. If it was one kind, then this is what we have. And as you said, former Governor Musu, he's feeling, for some reason, he seems to feel that he's blameless in this whole affair.
So,
Governor Daniel.
What are you expecting? He will come out and say, crucify me. I'm the one who caused the problem.
And then there's something else going on between him and Patutomi that people are saying, is this not a red herring? Which one is this one you're bringing to the market?
So the argument between him and Patutomi was that Pat had brought some investors into Ogun State. And as a requirement, they were made to pay a certain amount of money. But at some point, the Ogun State government was not moving forward with the agreement. And so there was a need to get their funds back. Pat said that he traveled, he went to Abeokuta, met with the governor, and in fact, they traveled back to Lagos together. And the governor asked him to write a letter for refund of some part of the money, which he did, and they got. And then the balance, he never got it. So he felt that what happened, what is happening to Ogun State now, and by extension the federal government, is justified. That there's a track record with Ogun State when it comes to not honoring...
Which is a bit of bad blood again.
Yes. But
because from the point of view of the governor, Patutomi was trying to pull a fast one on him.
Yeah, but in fact, he said the government before him blacklisted Patutomi.
Yes.
And Patutomi said, we're not even whitelisted, not to talk of being blacklisted by the same government. So, but you see, in a situation where everybody is speaking the fact or the truth, as they all claim, just know that somewhere along the line, the truth is buried.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, it has to be.
And the reason why, they are not coming forward with all this kind of, the exact facts so that Nigerians can distill them is just because they are not proud of some of the things that happened on the ground.
That happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it stands, quite frankly, that aspect of it stands to reason. That...
Can I tell you something, sir?
Sure.
Do you know that we're talking about foreigners now, but you need to know the number of Nigerians who have dealt with previous governments by way of contract execution or consultancy and all that, who have not been paid just because the current governor is quarreling with his predecessor, or he believes that what ought to come out of that job had come out and gone to the former person. So why do I have to inherit that burden and pay?
But
and when these guys go
come out of these public jobs,
and when these guys go to court against the state, do you understand? Judgment is given even against the state,
yes,
but they are not able to execute the judgment. So they go cap in hands, trying to look for big political heavyweights in the state or those that are connected to the governor to beg, even to be paid some money at discounted rate. You see, but these guys knew, and that was why they terminated their lawsuit in Nigeria and went abroad.
Yeah, because they saw that we're not, at this rate, we're not going to get anything out of it.
So that's it.
Well, As we wait for the calls to come in, because this matter has been on the air for a while, people with legal luminaries like your good self have been commenting on it. And quite frankly, the essence of what has been said is what you've said in this little time. But it now remains for us to maybe explore the fallout of this kind of a thing, the matters that arise from it.